The feds say there is no stockpile of vaccines. Colorado's governor says we were lied to. We look at what that means for the pace of vaccinations. Your question about vaccinating a population we're all close to. And I'll have a word about making American leadership competent again. Denver preemptively closes buildings downtown ahead of possible violence next week, while a state legislator offers this angry warning.
If you think you have problems last Wednesday, they might not be over yet.
So it kind of seems like everything is terrible. Tell me something good, something really good.
Thank God for Nikola Jokic.
It's a lot to put on one man, but he is very large. That's next. Colorado was lied to. If you believe the governor, we were lied to about how many doses of the vaccine we'd get from the federal government and when. The Trump administration said today there is no federal stockpile of vaccines after all. For Colorado, that means fewer doses in the short term. Yet the state says the major parts of its distribution plan will just continue. Arnusha Roy looks into how that's possible.
I was informed by General Perna today that there is no Federal Reserve of doses.
So instead of the roughly 210,000 doses the state thought it was going to get next week,
That leads to 77,950 doses next week.
or 38% of what they thought they'd have. It's still more than they've been doing. Officials were disappointed because they hoped the influx in vaccines would help them get through the 70 and older group faster. But today said they're still on track to vaccinate 70% in this group by the end of February.
I was on the call. Governor spoke with General Perna this morning.
They also said the state was assured people scheduled for first doses and due for a second one would get one.
Moderna and Pfizer are increasing their supply.
For the weeks of February 1 to 7, February 8 to 14, February 15 to 21, we are expecting the supply in about the 90 to 100,000 range.
And what they're sending right now is actually coming right off the manufacturing line.
Here's a look at a critical part of Phase 1A, long-term care facilities.
Do you know if everyone's scheduled at this point?
They are.
This includes skilled nursing facilities and assisted living facilities that signed up for the federal program that partnered with CVS and Walgreens.
That's what they're telling us.
It means 203 skilled nursing facilities will have received first doses by this weekend. The remaining 6 will be done next week. A total of 932 assisted living facilities are due to have their first doses done by the end of the month.
It is not a good feeling about how long the program is going to
Which
take.
is why the state will be keeping a close eye on the program.
If they do start running into issues where they're not going to be able to complete by the end of February, to let us know.
And that could include state vaccination teams stepping in, long-term care facility staff helping out as well. I did want to point out that there are 19 long-term care facilities that did not sign up for this federal program. The state said they're mainly in rural Colorado, so it made more sense for them to work with their local county-level public health agencies. We also had a chance to touch base with a couple of hospital systems who said that they are very disappointed with what they learned about allocations today. They did, however, say 70 and older, they are still being vaccinated, but just keep in mind some people may be facing a longer wait than they had hoped for, Kyle.
Yeah, I want to ask about that, Anusha. I think there's been a lot of focus and talk about the people that are toward the beginning of the vaccine line. But how about for all the folks in general population who are relatively healthy but would still like the shot? Are we still on a timetable to have a hot vaccine summer?
Yeah, I mean, that is a huge question. Lots of people are asking that. I talked to the general, right? How long is it going to take to get the general population, enough people vaccinated? He is still hoping for this year, but that is going to hinge on a couple of really important things. One of them is going to be manufacturing of the vaccine, and he's also keeping a very close eye on new vaccines coming online. So a lot of ifs and things that have to happen in between.
All right, thank you, Anusha. Colorado's percentage of people vaccinated continues to just kind of creep up. It's 4.1% at last check. That's folks who've gotten their first dose of the vaccine. The state vaccinated 10,500 people yesterday, so all told, a little under 240,000 people have gotten their first dose in Colorado. Got to remember, though, we're not out to vaccinate everyone, so our goal is well short of 100%. So I don't know about you, but the news that the national vaccine stockpile was a mirage really discouraged me today. It didn't surprise me, but it discouraged me. it felt like the weight of a lot of things all pointing to one important thing. Americans deserve competent leadership again. There are competent conservatives and competent liberals and lots of competent, pretty apolitical people who just want to help their country work the best way it can. And competent leadership does not mean that everything's going to work out fine every time or work out the way that you want it to. It does mean, though, that we could at least have some confidence when something goes wrong, that it didn't go wrong from a lack of trying or from laughably unqualified people in the room or as the result of some bonkers conspiracy theory. Competent American leadership from liberals, conservatives, and everybody in between will give Americans some basic peace of mind. The ability to say, enjoy a Friday afternoon without worrying why the president is meeting with the MyPillow guy to discuss declaring martial law. You can look that up if you hadn't heard that that was in the news. Competent leadership is not ideological. It is basic. Competent leadership is the peace of mind that you deserve, that if the government says that vaccines are stockpiled, when the vaccines are stockpiled, and peace of mind that pillow salesmen are not plotting military coups ahead of your holiday weekend. Tonight's next question comes to us via text. Viewer wants to know if dentists and their staff are able to start getting vaccinated. Texter mentioned their dentist in Fort Collins hadn't been able to yet. That is a very good question, considering how dentists are up close and personal with our droplet dispensers. Dentists are tied to Phase 1B, along with other moderate-risk healthcare workers and first responders. The state health department is telling local public health agencies that they need to be prioritizing 1A, highest-risk healthcare workers right now. Some of them haven't gotten their first dose, so it looks like it's going to be a while before Phase 1B folks, like your dentist office employees, get the shot. There are 818 Coloradans currently hospitalized with COVID-19. That is down 4 patients from yesterday, although the decrease in hospitalizations has kind of stalled out over the last week. This time last week, we had 833 patients in hospitals. Our positivity rate continues to go down. Yesterday's was 5.1%, brings our 7-day average down to 6.1%. After a bit of a surge in our daily case rate, that again seems to be dropping. Excellent news. Colorado added 1,944 new cases of COVID yesterday. We're averaging about 2,100 cases per day over the last week. Denver is preemptively closing city buildings early or all day next week because of the threat of violent protests over the election. Depends on the building and the day. The FBI has been warning of potential armed protests at every state capital. Marshall Zellinger looks at preparations to protect people and places downtown.
Temporary fencing remains at the state capitol and at the nearby judicial building. In between, windows remain boarded up.
We have received some calls of people that live close to the capitol that are concerned that there might be issues around the inauguration.
Colorado State Patrol troopers are normally responsible for the Capitol and other state buildings downtown. They'll be visible tomorrow through Wednesday with the potential for armed marches on the Capitol.
We're not saying that there's going to be any problems, but with what we have had happen in the Capitol, then go ahead and just make sure you take precautions during this time, that if you do see things that don't look like they might be safe for you, that you should stay out of that area at that time.
In July, Denver's safety manager gave CSP temporary authority to issue citations or make arrests for certain crimes within the city of Denver at the Capitol. That power was extended indefinitely and is still in place. Crimes like destruction of public or private property, trespass, and dangerous or deadly weapons.
There is not a book of responses that you have to say this is the only way that you respond. You have to take every situation and look at it for what it is.
Denver Safety Manager Murphy Robinson said the city does a risk assessment to figure out how to minimize harm and injury, which could explain why the United States Postal Service announced today that it would temporarily remove certain blue collection boxes from Capitol Hill and downtown Denver. And just like this summer's protests, there could be law enforcement working that support the message being delivered. Robinson said he's not concerned how that will impact his officers on duty.
We just ask officers to do their job. I am a black life. I am sympathetic to everything that was talked about. this summer. However, my job was to make sure that the people of Denver remain safe. And so it is no different here. We're asking that all officers, all personnel that are involved here, just do their jobs.
So if you don't plan on being downtown or you're not doing any business near the Capitol, you might be thinking, hey, enough of this. It doesn't bother me. Well, it could impact you because, as we said, Denver City buildings they're already closed on Monday for the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, and now many will be closed Wednesday and Thursday. And city employees will be subject to going through the regular public entrances and not just being able to flash their badge and get by the security. They may have to go through the same security and wanding things that normally they wouldn't have to.
So, Marshawn, publicly and privately over the last couple of days, I've been asked by a number of people, what do you think is going to happen? And it's really tough to say. I mean, I try to keep an eye on extremist political chatter from kind of across the map. And you do see some people with prominent followings who say, don't go down there. And then there are others saying, do go down there. So smart, I guess, the city's preparing.
I didn't get a feel from the people I talked to today of what they actually believe is happening versus the same thing, the chatter they've seen that they feel could happen. So, I mean, this is, again, tomorrow through Wednesday. I couldn't tell you for certain right now.
Yeah, if we look back to some of the unrest of this last summer, there were days that were telegraphed to be big deals that turned into nothing, and there were days that we thought nothing was going to happen, and it did turn into a deal. So preparation keeps people safe. Marshall, thank you. Hey, quick reminder about what we're doing together this week for your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign. Jeffco Prosperity Partners has a unique approach to getting families out of poverty. Each family in that nonprofit program identifies what would make the biggest difference for them. It could be some new job training for a new job opportunity, more earning potential. Maybe it's an advanced degree that they just need some tuition help with. Maybe they're trying to figure out how to get into home ownership. Maybe what they need is assistance with a health challenge or a mental health challenge. Jeffco Prosperity Partners comes in alongside those families with a combination of personalized coaching and financial assistance to help those families escape poverty, reach self-sufficiency long-term, rely less on government benefits. If you text the word thanks to 303-871-1491, I will send you the link to join me and a bunch of other good people in donating. We have raised more than $20,000 so far this week. That's money that's going to help those families reach their goals and bring generations of Coloradans out of poverty. Thank you for being there for our neighbors once again.
If you think you have problems last Wednesday, they might not be over yet.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a Republican in Colorado's legislature is threatening his colleagues with another insurrection. Let's ask him what he meant. Next. The hope here and in Washington is peace and calm in the coming days, weeks, months to follow. For cooler heads and politics free of violence. That is the approach that I would wager that most Coloradans support. Then there's the approach of Republican Representative Richard Holtorf of Akron, who issued this warning on the floor of the legislature to Democrats.
Let's get behind the people of this state and do what we were sent here to do and not limit their voice. Because if we continue to do things like that, if you think you have problems last Wednesday, they might not be over yet.
Representative Holtorf, let's be very, very careful not to incite any activities outside of this building.
We asked Representative Holtorf about that pretty clear threat. He said that what he was talking about was the small peaceful gathering outside Colorado's state capitol on January 6th, not the storming of the U.S. Capitol. I'm not exactly sure why he would feel the need to threaten his colleagues with a peaceful protest, but here's what he told us when we asked.
What I was merely saying, if you were here at that protest, the biggest outcry was for their voices to be heard and not be limited. And I said that we must keep this open because we could have more problems in the future.
I would hope that we're not at a point where politicians think that stoking insurrectionist rhetoric is a way to get attention. But of course, there's a congresswoman from Colorado who proves that extremism is a very quick way to make a name for yourself.
It was
was another wild day of winds up in the mountains, the foothills, and then of course across the eastern plains where I-70 shut down because there was so much dust out there. 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts coming across much of eastern Colorado. Tonight our attention shifts to the northwest where our next storm system will roll in. Some snowfall pushes across the northern and central mountains overnight into early tomorrow morning. Might see a couple of flurries early here in Denver, but I wouldn't count on much. The storm system is a fast mover. It rolls right on out of here. Right now looks like about 2 to 4 inches coming around Steamboat Springs, an inch or 2 around the I-70 mountain corridor. Overall, partly cloudy skies and highs back into the 40s for us tomorrow. Look at this 7-day forecast. Another shot for some snow next Monday and Tuesday.
Coloradans are counting their blessings these days, their big Serbian blessings.
Thank God for Nikola Jokic.
Your nuggets of good news next. Your Friday good news is basically my self-care routine at this point. But you know what? Anything to put the bonkers horribleness that's happened in the last week behind us and revel in whatever you are celebrating in your life. Photojournalist Tom Cole took his camera and our question to Morrison.
Morrison's the little spot right outside the chaos of Denver.
We came here 30 years ago. We coined the term that it's the nearest faraway place.
The good news is we're all in this together, and if we keep working together, we'll all get through it, for sure.
My good news is the sun is shining. It's been a great year for us, and we are so excited for when we can get some music going back here.
My good news is Denver Nuggets are back playing. No fans yet, but soon enough. I'm happy for that. Thank God for Nikola Jokic.
The Cliff House Lodge is a hot tub cottage getaway. I think people are getting stir crazy now that people have been locked inside their homes with all of everybody. You know, they've been getting babysitters and such and coming and staycationing and, soaking it all away.
My good news is that I am on a new journey. I just moved here at the end of the year, and I'm starting 2021 off way more positive than 2020.
I do have good news. We are just celebrating the start of our 30th year in business up here in Morrison.
Oh, I think it's quaint and very peaceful.
I think more people have discovered Morrison, and that's good news.
Oh, you caught me. I was trying to type a response to somebody on Twitter. So we're going to go down a rabbit hole. You made us do this. First time you spotted something out of place, and then we pulled the thread and the whole system we rely upon collapsed. I'll explain next. It's a sign that King Soopers might be messing with us. You have been all about the misplaced grocery signs lately, like the mangoes in Glendale that sure look like avocados. Jill sent us a picture of the oddest looking asparagus we've ever seen. Somebody needs to check the cabbage at the Arvada King Soopers. And then the comparison's really just apples and oranges at the Leetsdale King Soopers. Klaus also saw some pecans that could double as sweet potatoes there. And now Kristen brings us back where we started, mangoes labeled as avocados. You need to shop with your head on a swivel, folks. Jeff writes, new next graphics and jingle remind me of daytime TV talk on a local access channel. Rachel says, thanks for changing the opening music. I used to put my fingers in my ears. The goal is to please everyone, all of the time. See you next time.